and Stephane Begaudeau from Obeo, and we are here to present you how to leverage existing and new features in Sirius to improve the user experience of your designers. So, why user experience matters? User experience, and notably poor user experience, is a hot topic when you create an application. While UX is important for any digital product, it is even more important for products that are expected to manipulate a lot of complex pieces of information. So, neglecting it can result in a sloppy product that people will not use. On the contrary, developing an interaction-rich experience will drive users back to the product. User experience is how a person feels when interacting with your product. It includes a lot of factors, some that are controllable by designers and developers, and others that depend on the environment or which are just a matter of preferences. These factors include design, aesthetics, usability, ergonomics, accessibility, performance, utility, and overall human interaction.
So, taking care of user experience when you develop a graphical designer means that you have to decide in which way important information should be presented. User experience is a part of the product development process that you don't hear about unless something goes wrong. But it's something that you should take care since the beginning of the project. It should be an integral part of the development process. Because when you relegate user satisfaction to a nice-to-have status, it often gets left out. So integrate it directly from the beginning of the project.
To improve the UX of your graphical designer, you have to work on 3 different levels. The look of your designer, then the way the users feel when they interact with it, and finally, one of the most important parts is its usability. The look of a product is not only the aesthetic appeal, but also how it creates credibility and trust with users and captures the spirit of what the users expect. For example, one of the first decisions you have to make is the kind of shapes to use. Here, all the nodes are represented in the same way with a kind of gray-purple rectangle. You can't easily determine the information displayed, you don't know how it is organized. You would have to look for details like the label of each node or edges to find out what is going on. Just by replacing the purple rectangles by explicit icons, representing here males and or females, and by improving the layout of the diagram, you can get directly that this diagram is showing a family tree. The small details like the labels are not so important now.
Icons are a good way to organize the complexity of the information that you want to display. Another way is to use good colors. One good practice when you specify designers based on Sirius is to define a color scheme and then create a color palette from it. If you're not comfortable with user interface design, a simple solution is to select one color and then create variations from this color. The human eye loves consistency, so be consistent with your choice of color. Respect this advice and your designer will look not only more professional, but more comfortable to use. So as I said before, people love consistency. So when something is different, it will attract the user attention. When you want to make a designer you want to make inside of the designer your user look at some important concept, you can change the consistency of your diagram with 3 different strategies. You can change the size of the element, you can use a different shape, or you can select a completely different color. You can thus have a base color for your element and another color to highlight some specific element that you want to display, and work with variations of those 2 major colors.
So, using icons is really useful when you want to quickly provide a piece of information graphically. One of the most interesting improvements coming with Sirius 5 is a new Decorator Mechanism. This new mechanism helps you manage the complexity of the information that you can display to your user by adding some additional icons to your mappings. In Sirius 5, there are 3 kinds of decorations. Mapping based, you can associate the decoration to a mapping, so it will be linked to your graphical elements. Then you can define also semantic based decorators. You can so associate a decoration to a semantic element, so it will be linked to your model elements. And a generic decorator exists also, and with it you can specify a decoration according to a predicate expression. For each decoration, you can specify where it will appear: north, south, northwest, southeast. And if you resize the mapping, or if there are too many decorations defined on the same position, a tooltip will appear showing all the decorations.
Okay, so now we will have a look at it in a small demonstration. So here we are using our BPMN designer, and we will have a look at how we made it more attractive for our end users. So the first thing we did is define a consistent color palette with the green for the background elements that you can see here, and variations of greens for these elements, variations of blues for the task. So you can see here all the color that we used. We also made sure that our tools are using a color scheme which is consistent with the element displayed. And we even went a bit further by making sure that for some small element we are using an image and reusing exactly the same image in the palette directly. In fact, if your color scheme is efficient and if your icons are well designed, your user should be able to manipulate your designers by using only the icon version. So we can also define decorators as we showed before. So here I'll start with a small generic decorator which will be applied to all elements. Here we have a precondition to make sure that it only appears on the task element. So if I save, you can see here on the northwest area of all the tasks that we have a new decorator which has appeared. We can also use the mapping based decorator. We just have to specify which kind of mapping will use it. Here we'll select the task 2, and it has a precondition to be limited to manual task. So now we can see that we have the 2 decorators available. If I resize the mapping, the tooltip appears to list all the decorators that are on this element.
Remember, users decide in just a few seconds whether your product is worth their time. That's the only opportunity you get to reel someone in. When it comes to poor user experience, the issues are noticeable. All of these problems create a negative emotional connection to the product, and your users need to enjoy interacting with your product. By working on the UX, you will introduce your grumpy users to Mr. Happy. The feel of a product is all about creating something that is a joy to use. That is crafting positive, pleasant emotions in users as they interact with your product or react to it. So, how to develop a pleasant product? You should put yourself into the user's shoes. You should think the way the user thinks. In fact, you should become a user. Remember that the developer never ever feels the same way the user does. So, you are used in Sirius to create Directive Tool, to edit labels in diagrams or tables or trees. When you develop this kind of tool, remember that the Directive tools are not only for editing labels. You have to create Directive tools which are smart for your users. For example, imagine that I have a property defined in a UML class diagram. I am a UML designer user and I want to update the cardinality of my property. When I edit it, what I just want is to be able to change the cardinality of my property just by writing a simple star. I don't want to type anything more. So don't hesitate to add shortcuts and advanced features for your users.
So let's have a look at our direct edit tool. So here, for example, I can select this event, which has a label of 60 minutes. And if I want to type 20 instead, it doesn't work. I have to type everything, 20 minutes. So we can modify our direct edit tool right here. So instead of using directly the value type by the end user, it can call a Java service which will append the minute part. So now if I get back to the diagram and I type 60, it creates the proper level.
We saw that the appearance of your product is important, and we just brought to your attention that you have to rethink the behavior of some of your tools to be smarter according to your user expectations. It doesn't matter what your product looks like if people don't know how to interact with it. You have to polish not only the appearance of your product, but also its usability. Usability is a core concept in UX. The idea is that products have to be easy to understand and use. Bad usability breaks UX. It is about the effectiveness of a product and how user-friendly it is. It is a key component of the overall user experience. Your product must be functional and predictable.
For example, when last year we released the first support of the new property view mechanism, many users came to complain that they had found it quite painful to create manually all the widgets for all the attributes of all the objects that they want to display. In fact, most of the time they wanted a default behavior. So we worked on that feeling and we improved the usability of the Sirius specification editor with a new menu which allows you to create the default definition of most of the widgets very quickly. Another way for you to improve the usability of your designer. We've introduced a new operation named let, which allow you to define some custom variables that you can reuse later in your model operations. With the let operation, you can create more complex tools very easily by storing some results to reuse them later in your tools. When you need some input from your end user, you can now use Dialogs and Wizard directly from Sirius. You don't have to create them in Java anymore. It allows you to create elements that are directly parameterized by the input of the user instead of creating blank elements that the user will have to edit later. So here we can also see an example of an input on a create element tool. So when we create element, we'll define this new dialog with its button and the various widgets that you can use. It reuses the same kind of element that in the property view definition.
With Series 5, you will now be able to reuse the same properties view definition easily, because an extension mechanism, you know that an extension mechanism already exists for diagrams, and now we have something similar for properties views. Thanks to this feature, you will be able to reuse anything from a simple widget to a whole page with multiple groups, widgets, styles, and even validation rules. You can now share those parts of your design between the properties views, the dialogues, and even the wizards. You will see that it will improve drastically the maintainability of your design. On this screenshot, for example, I have defined a dialog with its own group and with another group extending the one from the properties view. I can change the title of the second group easily with any impact on the property view. It also comes with all its validation rule and all its widgets. Another mechanism that was also introduced in Sirius 5 to provide to the specifier a way to customize an existing specification which it cannot modify, and you will see all those mechanisms in our small demo just after.
So let's get back to our BPM and modeler. Okay, so first of all, here, since we have provided a domain class, we now have access to this new widget, which can be used to create very quickly widgets that are already parameterized with the default behavior. You can customize everything if you want. Here, for example, I'll make it read-only. I can also create a widget for the incoming edges. So here, if I select an element, you can see that I have my ID, and I also have this widget here to manipulate the incoming edges. I can also create a dialog in our tool. So here we'll create a small double-click tool. So the double-click tool, give it an ID. It will be applied on task elements. And inside, I can use the new model operation open dialog. I can change the title of the dialog if I want. Here I'll have a small page and name it edit page. And inside I have my group where I can add my widgets. So here I'll copy the name widget that was defined before. And here we have a small dialog which allows us to manipulate the name of an element. So if I get back to my diagram, I double-click on it, and you can see that the dialog appears because I have these double-click tools, and it only displays the name of an element.
So here, the first approach was to duplicate the name widget. So it exists in the properties view definition and in the dialog specification. The new extension mechanism allows us to simplify this. First, we will remove the name widget and the group defined in the dialog definition. Instead, we will go to the Extend tab, and we said that we want to extend the default page. So now, when we save, if we double-click on the task to open the dialog, we see that we inherited all the elements from the definition specified in the properties views. Better now, if I go back to the General tab, I can update the label expression really easily, and now I will show the name of the selected element instead in my dialog. So this shows that it's really easy to override existing specification. Now, Stephane, we will show you that we could use exactly the same mechanism in a wizard.
So here we have prepared a small tool which opens a wizard. So it's a contextual action in which we will open the wizard. We can specify everything from the title of the window, the title of each page. Underneath we can have multiple pages with multiple groups, and if I right-click, if I save first, and if I right-click here, you can see that my wizard can be used directly. I can create multiple pages, and I can define the behavior of anything inside of the wizard.
From Sirius-5, it exists another way to customize the behavior of the properties views. Thanks to the override mechanism, this allows the specifier to override the behavior of an existing O design without modifying it directly. For example, I can create an override text. So here we are doing it in the same O design, but in fact you can do it in another design, and it will just work and override the old behavior. And I decide to override the existing name widget in order to customize the style of the name widget. So now we are creating a new style, and we decide to just say that all the name widget will show bold, italic, and underline now. And if we double click to show, now all the name widgets are overridden, the style of the name widgets are overridden.
So don't forget to help your user discover on their own the feature of your product. The Sirius team work also on this for Sirius 5 to help you create intuitive and discoverable designers. In Sirius 5, we try to improve the fluidity of the workflow when working with our Sirius designers by including two new features. The first one is a new wizard for model creation, and the second one is a dashboard editor for AIRD files. We will demonstrate them right now in a new demo. Another possibility that you can leverage in your designer is to define an activity explorer. It is not directly provided by Sirius, but it is available in the Amalgam project, which is part of the Eclipse modeling component.
The dashboard editor is a kind of session editor in Sirius which allows the final user to manage a Sirius session. So, why do we create this? This editor was released first in Series 5, and imagine that it is the first time you have to use a designer based on Sirius, so you are in the Java perspective. Before Series 5, unless you switch to the modeling perspective, you have almost no chance to be able to open a representation easily. From Series 5, if I expand a modeling project now, from any perspective, I can right-click on the representation file and the session editor, the dashboard editor, is available. In this editor, I can manage the semantic models and the viewpoints and the representations. I can finally easily open, for example, my pizza process diagram just by double-clicking on it. So, as I said, this editor is not active by default, but you can change this behavior in order to open it automatically when a session is loaded. In the session editor, you can create also new semantic model, and this uses a new wizard available from Sirius 5 also, which helps us to create semantic models. This wizard is designed in order to be easily reusable from your own Java code. So on the first page, you have to select which kind of model you want to create. And on the second page, it will provide the possible route of your meta model. You can contribute to customize the behavior of this wizard thanks to a simple extension point named package metadata. Finally, a last solution to help your users to find their way in your product and to find the features available in your designer is to use the Activity Explorer. So, as Stephane said, it is not yet included in Sirius, but we are working on this topic for next year. What looks like an Activity Explorer? We defined one for the BPMN designer. You see that it is a kind of workflow where you can define the different steps, and then you will have you can define also pages. This is kind of an overview of the different steps, and then you have some other pages which include different groups, and for each groups we can find different action like creating diagram, creating table, creating tasks.
And you can define this using extension points too. You can have a small overview right here. So, to finish, just a word on the process in order to create graphical designers. If you assemble a team of the best programmer ever, you won't automatically create a great product. In order to build a good product, you need to see it in the user's light. For that, a user should be part of the development team, part of every feature made, and part of every decision. So the best way to achieve this is to create a user experience expert position inside of your team in order to have someone with the point of view of the end user, which is part of every decision that you will make, starting from the beginning of the project. And using this approach, your project will be much more usable, useful, and demanded. Remember that the first design is rarely the best option, so just like with code, test and iterate what you've done.
So, what's next for you now after EclipseCon? You'll go back home and you will rework on your Sirius-based designer. And remember, first, try to enhance the look of your designer by working on selecting consistent icons and colors. Second, develop smart tools to make your user feel joy when they interact with your product. And last but not least, work on usability. And finally, help your user discover the features of your designer.
So we've released Sirius 5 in June with Eclipse Oxygen. We are working on Sirius 5.1, which will be released next month with Oxygen.1. As usual, do not hesitate to give us some feedback and give us your opinion on new features that you would like to see in the next release of Sirius. We're also working on the preparation of SiriusCon, which will occur in 2 weeks in Paris. So if you want to know more about Sirius Designer, don't hesitate to come.
And you can find the program of SiriusCon at our booth, so do not hesitate to come at the booth to get the program. And thanks for your attention, and if you have any question, we would be happy to answer. Do you have any questions? Yes.
My question is that if my project contains a lot of files and there are only some files for which I am interested to create or let's say the target of my own design. So you just mentioned that now we can introduce this metadata, but let's say register only those files, so I do not need to scan to perform a re-scan that which model needs to be displayed in the video.
Want to answer? No? I'm not sure to get your question. The metadata we are talking about are metadata to, we develop a new wizard which help you to create new semantic models. And with EMF, when you want to create a new model, you have the ability to choose between all the packages available in your. It is providing all the meta models registered, and then you could find which root element you want to use. And the metadata we are talking about just help you to define for your specific designer that the root of your meta model should be this one. Yeah. So this is just a really simple extension point, and I think you just have to say the URI, the name you want to show to your user, the documentation associated to your meta model, and after this,
the name of the class that you want to.
Okay, and the name of the class you want to put an highlight on. But the user can still activate by deactivating a small checkbox. It can still have get all the possible meta models, all the possible concepts you define in your meta model.
Is it possible to have different levels of scope? For example, if I have all my models in one folder, and then I say, okay, everything which is included in this folder should be taken as my main objects for the data?
Yeah, it could be improved. Right now, you just have the ability to specify a static list. I'm not sure that we have a dynamic option.
Not at the moment, but it could be a good enhancement. So maybe you can add a new Bugzilla, a new issue in our Bugzilla to propose this.
Is this everything which you have explained? This is available as a documentation?
I think this is in the documentation in the developer section. So you will find everything on the Sirius on the website, on the Sirius website, and in the Sirius documentation. But at the last part, in the developer part. Other questions? Okay, thanks.
Thanks.